students, welcome to the point. So we are discussing about India-Bangladesh relations. So in this particular session we'll be discussing about the main bilateral issues like the border issues between India and Bangladesh. So the border issue we also call it as an boundary issues also. So there was an agreement called Land and Boundary Agreement between India and Bangladesh. So we'll be discussing about this LBA, that is the Land Boundary Agreement. So India, it finally delivered on a long overdue promise by carrying out the 100th amendment to its constitution. At this after 1974 Land Boundary Agreement and the additional protocol that is signed in the year 2011, the implementation of the Land and Boundary Agreement, it allowed the two neighbors to exchange their enclaves in each other's territory, and also it resolved the long-standing problem of land in adverse possession. So it will also facilitate the resolution of the undemarcated riverine borders also. So the agreement, it facilitated the transfer of 111 Indian enclaves to the Bangladesh and 51 Bangladeshi enclaves to India. And as the agreement allows residents to choose citizenship of either country, and nearly 14,000 people living in the erstwhile Bangladeshi enclaves, they became Indian citizens, while 35,000 people living in Indian enclaves, they embraced Bangladeshi citizenship. So this was the boundary issue, and what were the benefits of this Land and Boundary Agreement? Let's discuss now. So the benefits of Land Boundary Agreement. So it is of immense diplomatic significance as it boosts India's image in the neighborhood with a perceptible surge in goodwill, and it would also shore up Sheikh Hasina's credibility with Bangladesh, as she has been often accused of being subservient to India, and this would further augment her capacity to take a bold policy decisions on regional connectivity, transit rights and trade, and it redresses the crisis of image which India has been facing in Bangladesh due to the strident anti-India stance of the opposition. And this Land and Boundary Agreement even forced the fiercely anti-India Khalida Zia to appreciate the deal. And it also redresses the humanitarian concerns, as 50,000 people were living in those maladministered enclaves with poor standard of living, citizenship rights. And from internal security point of view, it would help to curb illegal activities, as this foreign enclaves were the hotbeds of militants and transnational criminal syndicates, with BSF and Indian police having no rights to enforce law and order. The resolution of enclave issue and undemarcated borders, it would help curb illegal transboundary movements and immigration by facilitating the completion of border fencing, and it would have perceptible economic benefit as the illegal trade constitute nearly 60% of regular trade, and thus by placing a tab on cross-border smuggling, it would definitely help streamline bilateral trade. Maritime and territorial waters. This is a long-standing irritant hindering a great bilateral cooperation, and it was removed when the United Nations Tribunal ruled in favor of Bangladesh and against India regarding a sea boundary dispute between these two countries. So both the countries, it welcomed the decisions of the Hague-based Permanent Court arbitration, which concerned the dispute area of Bay of Bengal. So this tribunal, it awarded Bangladesh nearly 80% of an area sprawling over 25,000 square kilometer, that is around 9,700 square miles. And the verdict settled a major part of the dispute between the two neighboring countries, as the verdict is binding on both the parties. So this decision, it is likely to expand the available space for bilateral diplomacy between India and Bangladesh. The settlement of the maritime boundary, it will further enhance a certain mutual understanding and goodwill between Bangladesh and India. So the Permanent Court of Arbitration, it also resolved the contentious issue of sovereignty over New Moor Island. So the name of the island is New Moor Island. By ruling in India's favor. And following the verdicts, Bangladesh has devised a blue economy roadmap. Blue economy roadmap for the sustainable exploitation of newly gained maritime territory through extensive upgradation of infrastructure. And as a consequence of the recent surge in goodwill, a memorandum of understanding on blue economy and a maritime cooperation in the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean was signed during Modi's visit in the year 2015, and the memorandum of understanding on use of Chittagong and Mongla ports. This agreement on coastal shipping and memorandum of understanding between coast guards, it will further enhance a closer maritime cooperation and the trade and transit facilitation, as India intends to use Bangladesh's port for access to its landlocked northeast. Though there are many countries like China, USA, European Union, they want to partner Bangladesh for the exploration of Bay of Bengal. India made a breakthrough by signing a memorandum of understanding between University of Dhaka, Bangladesh and Council of Scientific and Industrial Research and India for joint research on oceanography of the Bay of Bengal. And now India seeks to counter Chinese inroads in the Indian Ocean by granting reasonable concessions to Bangladesh for closer cooperation. And India now has access to its northeastern states through the Chittagong port, which was long considered a part of China's string of pearls strategy. And Bangladesh exclusive economic zone is estimated to hold significant reserves of oil and natural gas, which India seeks to leverage for its own energy security. The resolution of maritime boundary dispute, it also removes a key obstacle in the way of BIMSTEC, which will facilitate integrated development of maritime infrastructure for greater economic integration with the Asian and Far East. The Coastal Navigation Memorandum of Understanding, it would improve transshipment facilities, thereby reducing reliance of already overburdened overland infrastructure between the two countries. And the Memorandum of Understanding between the Coast Guards will facilitate India patrolling to check smuggling, human trafficking and piracy. There is also a river water sharing issues between India and Bangladesh. And India and Bangladesh share nearly 54 rivers between them, of which Ganga, Brahmaputra, Teesta and Meghna are the prominent ones. And it is only on the Ganges that the two sides have functional hydrological agreement through a 1996 Faraka agreement. Teesta water dispute. So according to Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, the ratio of Bangladesh external dependency of water is over 90%, and a fair amount of that water comes through India. And Teesta River, it originates from the water of Kangas and Zemu Glacier in the Himalayas in the Sikkim region. From source to mouth, the Teesta is approximately 414 kilometers, of which 150 odd are in Sikkim and 123 in West Bengal, and the remaining 140 or so it is in Bangladesh. If India-Bangladesh ties in the 20th century were defined by the conflict over sharing the waters of the Ganga, today the Teesta has become a dominant recurring theme. So, of the Teesta's catchment area, nearly 83% of the catchment area lies in India, and the remaining 17% is in Bangladesh. So it is a Bangladesh's fourth largest transboundary river for irrigation and fishing activities. So its catchment area supports around 8.5% of its population, roughly about 10 million people we can say, and 14%, it also supports 14% of crop production. So as a low-lying nation with a large delta, it is vulnerable to rising seas, global warming, and the inward advance of highly saline seawater, which threatens its groundwater freshwater supply and making the northern districts irrigated by the Teesta critical of the country's overall food security. Over 1 lakh hectares of land across 5 districts and severely impacted by upstream withdrawals of the Teesta's water in India and face acute shortage during the dry season. Bangladesh wants nearly 50% of river's water supply, especially in the months between December and May annually, while India claims a share of 55%. And India also built a canal called a Teesta Canal to divert water for irrigation near a Siliguri corridor without any consensus between the two countries. The negotiations have been since from 1983, when a preliminary arrangement had allocated nearly 39% for India and 36% for Bangladesh. A lesser share for Bangladesh takes into account a groundwater recharge, and that takes place between the two barrages on the Teesta at Gazaldoba at Gazaldoba in Jalpaiguri on the Indian side and Dhalia in Lal Monirhat in Bangladesh. So the remaining 25% it was left unallocated for the later decision, and especially this was done because the regular flow of a small quantity of water is necessary for the life of a river. So in fact, the talks continued for several decades in between without much headway until 2011, when Delhi and Dhaka reached another agreement, which was an interim arrangement for 15 years, where India would get 42% and Bangladesh would get 37.5% of the Teesta's water during the dry season. The Teesta water sharing agreement fell prey to the unpredictabilities of central and state level politics in India, and it was cancelled at the last moment during the visit of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to Dhaka in 2011 due to the opposition from West Bengal government. And there was a most significant hurdle is that the lack of scientific assessment of actual water needs of West Bengal. And Teesta, it is an interstate river in India, and there is no water sharing accord between Sikkim and West Bengal. And moreover, Sikkim has more hydropower projects on the river, and thus it needs to be taken on board for any durable water sharing arrangement. And this is more significant as water is a state subject and legitimate demands of the states must be addressed. So a comprehensive accord on Teesta, it would go a long way in assuaging the brewing anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh, which is exploited by the opposition for political gains. So it would also act as a leverage for a comprehensive transit agreement with Bangladesh, which is reconcile Bangladesh, and it would be an active partner in tackling Brahmaputra issue with China. And thus, it is about time that the center acts in close cooperation with the concerned states to bring the issue to an early closure. So this is all about the Teesta River issue. In the next session, let's discuss about the Thipaimuk Dam issue and also about India's rivers interlinking projects and the economic issues and all those things. Thank you.